The topic of my presentation today is Canadian Consumer Retail Meat Study. And a little bit about the study. It was a survey that was done in November 2010 of 1,400 consumers across Canada. A requirement that they were the head of purchasing fresh meat for their household or shared that responsibility. So I'd like to recognize People Talking, the consulting group that did the study for ALMA. The purpose of the study was to better understand Canadian attitudes, behaviors towards fresh meat purchases. We wanted to really specify that we wanted to get some Canadian research. Typically, as an industry, we do rely heavily on some market research coming out of the United States, and we wanted to get a snapshot of the Canadian market so that we could provide that to the clients that we work with. So the study was to gain some, what are the key motivators and drivers that are influencing Canadian demand for fresh meat? What are their product attributes that they're looking for? A little bit about production claims, the animal welfare, the environmental, breeds, animal antibiotic-free and hormone-free, as well as origin of the fresh meat that they purchase. This helps to position product differentiation, determining branding opportunities, as well as just in general identification of trends in terms of the products. Well, what are the motivators and drivers behind consumers' purchasing decisions? So the first question that we did ask within the survey is we asked consumers, do you look for indications that the meat that you purchase at retail is Canadian? And we didn't specify what indications. It may be the Beef Information Center's Canadian beef logo. It may be the Canadian pork logo. Maybe grades. Frequently, if you look at flyers or at the retailer, it says cut from Canadian grade AA or higher. So it may be the indication that they're looking at. But 19% of consumers said that they usually look for an indication, and a further 27% often do. So a little less than half are out there looking for that. At the other end, 26% of consumers said that no, they don't look for an indication. And that may be, if you think about it, we do live in an agriculture producing province and country, and intuitively those consumers are likely to believe that the product that they purchase at retail in the province is produced in the province, or at most within Canada. And so that false impression, unaware of the level of imported product, if they knew that, they would probably be more likely to be looking at the packages for origin. There's some demographic differences. You look at individuals over 50 years of age, 53% of them are looking for often or usually looking for that indication, versus under 50 years of age, it drops down to 41%. So quite a gap there. Also, regionally, Quebec respondents, only 37% of them were looking for often or usually looking for that Canadian indication. Perhaps it was the terminology that it'd be Canadian, but there was that gap where the rest of Canada was up at 49%. We asked then, was the origin indicated on the fresh meat that you purchased? And only half of respondents stated that the meat that they usually purchased gave them an indication of the origin. The least was pork. Only 42% of respondents said that the pork they purchased had an origin indication, relative to lamb, which was at 64%. And I think if you look at it, probably because of the market share, origin wasn't necessarily Canadian. It could have been New Zealand or US, just was there an indication of the origin. And we know that New Zealand lamb has a large market share within the Canadian marketplace, and I think it just demonstrates that consumers recall the origin of that product. Beef was at 52%. The difference between beef and pork, maybe to some extent, is that beef has the grading system, pork doesn't, so it doesn't have that mechanism to provide some kind of conveyance as to the origin of the product. Interestingly, chicken was 49%. Only 49% of consumers said that the package had the origin on, which is surprising given a lot of the chicken in Canada is produced within the country. we asked consumers, is buying Canadian fresh meat important to you? And 9 in 10 respondents said that buying Canadian meat is important. 5 in 10 said it was very important. And this was relatively consistent across the different proteins, because we asked questions about chicken, beef, pork, lamb, and bison. And as you can see, lamb was the exception, and which only 28% of consumers said it was very important to buy Canadian. And the one explanation that I would have to throw out there again is the market share and familiarity with New Zealand lamb. And I think that's an important lesson learned, and to something to discuss as an industry, is that as consumers have that imported product year after year and they become familiar with it, that it negatively influences their perception that they need Canadian product. And that's, when we try and brand it as Canadian, we over time lose that effectiveness if we have that import threat. But it also, in general, the secondary, it reduces perhaps the support for the agriculture community in general when they come up with responses like this. Then we asked consumers, why do you care about the product be from Canada? And this is responses from those that do care. 6 in 10 care because it benefits or supports the Canadian economy and Canadian farmers. And then sort of fragmented but sort of consistent is that they believe they want Canadian because of higher standards, and the standards are enforced. It's fresher, it's closer to them. It's safer, more trustworthy, and better quality and best. And those are the terminology that they use to define why they purchase or are looking for a Canadian product. So just sort of in summary, 9 in 10 consumers responded that it was important to buy Canadian meat. 46% are actively looking at the fresh meat packages and trying to determine the origin. And only 5 in 10 respondents have stated that the meat that they purchase did have that indication of origin. So consumers are looking for Canadian, and it's important to them. They're looking at the packages, but they're not being successful with only 5 in 10 respondents saying that it's there. Just some other trends, just quickly to touch base. We asked what has changed over the last 2 to 3 years. And in terms of consumers are buying more meat on sale, 50% of them said that they're doing that. 48% are reading the flyer to direct their purchases. They're doing that more frequently. And 43% of respondents are using flyers more often to compare meat prices between retailers. In terms of health, 56% of consumers are making an effort to eat more healthfully, at least more healthily, and 49% are doing that within the meat category. They're trying to choose leaner cuts of meat, product that is trimmed more, and potentially moving towards those proteins that they believe are leaner. In terms of 56% of people are eating more at home. They're trying to waste less. This is again tied back into the economy. They're looking for faster recipes because of their busy lifestyle. And perhaps the one trend that everyone needs to be aware of is that 19% of consumers commented that they're eating more meatless meals. And that's an important trend that we now have a benchmark and to try and manage. So that was just really the tip of the iceberg of this study. I really just wanted to introduce it, make sure that everyone recognizes that the study is available on the ALMA website. We encourage you to go there. There's something from that study for everyone, from livestock organizations, feedlots, packers, processors, to retailers. One of the earlier speakers talked about knowing what your retailers. Within the study, it has number of questions regarding retailers. And within it, it has the demographics and purchasing responses for each of the retailers. So you know what are their demographics, why do they go to that grocery store, what is of importance to them. And each retailer does have their own sort of specialty, why they are the preferred retailer to that consumer. differs between retailers. So that's important depending on what type of product you're trying to market. There's also, briefly, there's some stuff on flyers, use of sales, bulk products. I didn't touch base on production claims and packaging, but within that there's some analysis, again, on the animal welfare, environmental claims, breed claims, and then hormone and antibiotic free. Packaging, what packaging are consumers familiar with, what are they looking for, and why do they have that, what is influencing their purchasing decisions. Ready to heat and other information, so encourage you to go find it.